Mountaintop Media is Pike Circuit Judge Howard Keith Hall indicted on theft and mail fraud charges. Well, it's a good start. Okay. It's a good start. At least this shows us that there is some looking into what's going on. It's just kind of a surprise that it was in a neighboring county. But what have I always said? Money. Money is at the root of this, I do believe. I think that, I've said that money I thought was the root of it, and that the SMEC stuff was just like a side product. And I'm not so sure that I was right about that. I think that the SMEC stuff around here has been going, I think money's just always involved, especially when you're talking about public officials and the kind of money that travels in those circles. I guess political. All right. No other word really to describe it, or to put it under a category. It would be political. But I think that the SMEC stuff has been a culture. I think it's a cultural mindset here in Appalachia. I don't think that it's just this county. I think it's widespread throughout the area that power, kind of a lot, and they don't really have anybody that's looking at them, right? So they can do really whatever they want as long as nobody comes looking and checking in and checking their stuff. They basically can just do as they please, and nobody's the wiser. As long as they pretend like they have the authority to do it, then who's to question that? Especially people who are uneducated in that field, or just don't know any better, But anyway, all right. Thank you, everybody. Miss Sherry, thank you for all you do. Bless you, honey. Bless you. Miss Lynette, super sticker. Thank you. All right, let's read this. So Pike Circuit Judge Howard Keith Hall has been indicted by a federal grand jury on fraud and theft charges. A federal grand jury in Frankfort returned the indictment against Hall on Thursday. If you all remember, this is the judge that we just read about last week. We just did a story on this guy where they reprimanded him for some of his behavior on the bench. And he was accusing Bill Sloan, the prosecutor over there, of trying to just destroy him. So this is the same guy, okay? Thursday charging him with 2 counts of mail fraud and 1 count theft of government funds. According to the indictment, the allegations stem from an alleged scheme in 2010. Now, I've said it many times. I think a lot of the crimes that these guys have committed have been within like the last 30 years or so. None of these guys are new, except for a couple here immediately locally in my area. But they're only new to certain positions. They're not new to the circle, and they're not new to the system. They've had other roles within that system, but they've been there a very, very long time. So they've built, and if they didn't have the family roots in this area, they married into them. So they're kind of smart when it came to that. But so the 2010, when Hall served as county attorney. According to the indictment, Hall appointed an unidentified attorney. Why are they keeping that person secret? Hall appointed an unidentified attorney as a part-time assistant county attorney who was required to work at least 100 hours per month. However, the indictment alleges that attorney performed almost no work on behalf of PCAO, which is Pike County Attorney's Office, did not report to work at the Pike County Attorney's Office or the Pike County Child Support Enforcement Office, and other than a handful of times did not represent the Pike County Attorney's Office in court. At no time between October 1st, 2010 and May 15th, 2020 did Attorney A work more than 100 hours per month on behalf of the PCAO. The indictment continues. Now, see, this is the kind of investigation that I've been talking about. They can go back and look at all of these records. And people have been sloppy around here, y'all, because they thought that there wasn't nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about. And we don't know when this investigation was initiated. We don't know why. We don't know what led them to even start looking at this. But I've always heard that Medicaid fraud was one of the biggest things that they will nail you to the wall for faster than they will anything. And, you know, these financial crimes, this is white collar crime. That's what they call these kinds of things. It's white collar because it's these suit and tie people who have these big, important jobs. They don't get their hands dirty. They're not out working on a motor under a car or, under the hood of a car. They're not digging ditches. Those are called blue collar workers. White collar workers are more high society. But that's where a lot more of the financial crimes come in because they're so easy. They're so easy for them to get away with. All right. Okay, I already read that part. Despite that, the indictment alleges that Hall submitted false payroll certifications to the Prosecutor's Advisory Council, which funds the county attorney's office across the state. During that time, the attorney received $140,000 to be exact, in gross pay, which swells to approximately $440,000 when benefits such as insurance are included. Separately, between 2011 and 2020, Hall claimed to be a partner in the unidentified attorney's law firm, for which he received various payments described as distributions totaling $505,900. Oh yeah. And these are exactly the questions that I have for many of them in our county. Now, who's going to start digging through these financials? Because they need to. I want to see it. I want to see how up on the up that they've been. I want to see. Can I see? Separately, between 2011 and 2000, I already read that. Okay, if convicted, Hall faces up to 20 years in prison for the mail fraud charges and up to 10 years for the theft charge. In addition, he could be ordered to pay fines of either $250,000 or twice the gross proceeds of the scheme, as well as restitution. So is the other attorney the unidentified attorney, attorney A? So does that mean if they've labeled him as attorney A, does that mean we might hear about an attorney B in maybe a superseding indictment? I don't know. I'm just speculating, of course. Hall is scheduled to have his initial appearance in U.S. District Court in Lexington on May 16th, which we will absolutely be watching. This is the second bit of bad news for the judge this month. 2 weeks ago, so it was 2 weeks ago, we might have covered it last week though. The Kentucky Judicial Conduct Commission issued a public reprimand against Hall for actions on and off the bench, which the commission said demonstrate bias, a lack of judicial decorum, and an abuse of judicial authority, undermining public confidence in the integrity, impartiality, and independence of the judiciary. A copy of the indictment is reprinted below. So let's look at the indictment.